I would have never, ever in the million years thought that was like what my life would be 10 years later starting this business.
It's really interesting how we put ourselves inside of these boxes.
I feel like someone had to tell me I'm worth it first, and then I believed it. Surrounding yourself with people that are doing what you want to do at the level you want to do it is important.
Episode number 1 of Quit Your Damn Job. My name is McCall at the McCall Taylor across the board, and this is Miss Kylee. Kylee, you own Kylee Ann Studio, so tell me a little bit about how you got started and what your business is.
Okay, so I am a photographer, and my business started a decade ago. I was here at Utah State in Logan. I had just moved here, and I was dating my husband now at the time, and I was studying like elementary education, special ed, totally something different. But I told my husband, or my fiance at the time, like one day I'd love to start a photography business. So we roll around to Valentine's Day, and I go into his room, and where his Xbox was, there was like a bag.
Oh.
And I opened up the bag, and it was my very first DSLR camera.
Aww.
He had sold his Xbox, and it was kind of like, you know that Gift of Love movie where like she sells the hair and he buys the clip, and it was kind of like our love story. And I married him a month later, and then later that summer I actually bought his Xbox back with my first wedding money.
Oh, so, that is so sweet.
So that's how it kind of started, and I just started so basically I've always loved photography, but really what was the trigger for me was I saw one of my friends start like a Facebook page. And back then, a decade ago, if you started a Facebook page, you were like...
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it was like starting an LLC.
Yep.
It was like, I'm legit.
It was a hot shot.
Yeah, it was. So I was like, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. And Absolutely. It was kind of like I needed one person to do it first to be like, oh, I can do this.
Right.
I don't have to like go to photography school. Like I could just start a business. And so that's kind of how I started.
That's so cool. So what has been your... probably like your biggest struggle in starting?
Definitely financially, it was hard for me to see like this is worth it. Like it was so expensive to start a photography business. And now like looking back, compared to starting other businesses, it's actually really not expensive. Because like you have to, brick and mortar stores, they have to have inventory and store and employees and like all sorts of legal things, you know. And for me, all I needed was camera equipment and like some contracts and, you know, business license, and I was good to go. But back then I was a broke college student and like came from a very like frugal upbringing, and I was like afraid to spend money and invest in education, and just kind of like I was going to just bootstrap it and go really slow. And my husband helped me a lot with that in the beginning. Like he was like, we need to buy the next thing so you can get better clients and stuff like that. But I think that was like one of the biggest challenges in the beginning is like, I can't afford to start this business.
Right. And a lot of that like negative talk to yourself is it's so detrimental at the first part. It's like, I can't do it. And so then you kind of get yourself into like a little
limiting
break. Thank you.
Like
limited belief.
Like, and even in the beginning, my mom said like, oh, are you ever going to shoot weddings? And I was like, oh, no, like maybe like the church gym type weddings.
Right.
I'm like, there's no way. Like, I'm not going to like, I just kind of put this like limiting belief on myself that like I was only good enough for maybe like low budget weddings. Like I was never going to be anything above that. I was just doing this for fun. And I had to like kind of break through all those different like limiting beliefs along the way, like the money one and like, am I good enough to shoot like real fancy weddings and like get paid thousands of dollars to do this? And obviously now a decade later, my business has grown. Like I was a full-time wedding photographer, high-end weddings for several years. And now I've transitioned more to shooting brands full-time. I have a whole photography team that works for me. I have a full-time wedding photographer, a wedding and family photographer, a brand photographer, an editor, a marketing assistant. And I would have never, ever in the million years thought that was like what my life would be 10 years later starting this business.
That's incredible. So where did you find your biggest challenges with figuring out what your value was?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel
all
like
of it?
I think this is something that like a lot of people struggle with is just like, and still even to this day at the level that I'm at, there's still things like, well, I didn't go to business school, so am I really qualified to teach people business? Like stuff like that.
Right.
And so I think the biggest thing is just like opening my mindset to the challenges that businesses definitely bring in. And I was kind of afraid of like rejection, afraid of like feared no one would book me, feared my style wasn't good, like all those different things along the way. And I just feel like the biggest thing I've ever done for my business is like work on my mindset. Like it's definitely, strategies are good and business books are good, but until I started working on like my mindset stuff and shifting to be like, I'm good enough, like I'm enough the way I am, people, and like really believing it. Because you can say it.
Right.
But it's like believing like, even if my style is this and 10 people don't like it, there's going to be one that loves it, and that's my client.
Absolutely. I love this so much. What was your pivotal moment to actually decide, okay, I need to figure out that this is what I'm worth?
So for me, it was actually when I had my first child. So this started a decade ago, and then we unexpectedly, like first anniversary, found out we were expecting our first child. And I was almost 2 years into this business at this point, and I was about to graduate from college, and I was kind of like, my time is worth more than what I'm charged. Like, it didn't really matter when I was going to school and my husband was working full time, so I could fill in the hours with working on my business. But as soon as like I was like, okay, I have a family now, like the time away from him is so important.
Absolutely.
And for me, it was that shift, is like learning that my time was value. I didn't learn it until I had another human to care for. And like, and I think if I didn't have a kid, it would have been like when I realized it's taking so much time away from my husband. But at that time we were so busy that it didn't matter.
It didn't matter.
But once you have like your jobs and then your nights and your weekends, that time becomes valuable. So once I had my son, I realized like, okay, my time is not worth $35 for this session or whatever. I was charging something ridiculous. And so at that point I was like, I either have to make this a hobby or I need to make this a business and be profitable. So I like committed to making it a business. I started investing in education. I went to my first conference that year in Las Vegas. I raised my pricing and I stuck to it, which was hard.
Yeah.
And I specialized too, because back then I was shooting like everything, dogs and newborns and all the things. And I was like, okay, I want to be wedding and families. Yeah. And I specialized. And I think kind of just deciding this is a business made me start treating it like a business.
Absolutely.
And that's really when I like shifted into like, okay, I have value, and like really believing that.
So before you pivoted and made this your full-time thing, what were you doing?
I was like basically like lived and breathed photography all day. Like I was like reading blogs all day and like going out with my friends who were also photographers and doing like these styled shoots and things. And I was booking a lot of clients. I really was busy, but I was charging like $35 to $50 a session. Like kind of how you see on the classifieds when people are like,
of course.
I charge $35. I was like one of those people. And I was in all these photography clubs and I was really like loving it and learning it, but it was not like a business. Yeah.
So were you like flashback before you even got your camera? What was it that you were doing then?
So in high school, I took some photography classes and I always had my dad's camera. So kind of photography was kind of,
always
he had a DSLR and it was like back then they were so expensive and hard to get. And it was actually a crappier DSLR than the one I got, but it was like thousands of dollars back then. Right. And like mine was probably like $350. My first one was probably like $350. And now like, my equipment's thousands of dollars. But like in the beginning, you see this thing that's like a couple $100s, like that's too much.
It's ridiculous.
And so I was taking photos all the time and I loved it, but I kind of thought, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people do this, just think like I'm going to be a teacher. I've always wanted to be a teacher. I'm going to be a teacher. And they just kind of get in this, like, my whole life I've told everyone I'm going to be a teacher. Now I have to be a teacher. So when I came here, I was going to be a teacher because that's what I've always thought I wanted. And every essay, I always said I wanted to be a teacher. And I never really had like a different career possibility. It was always teacher.
It's really interesting how we put ourselves inside of these boxes. Like you never think that there's anything else that you could do because it's like, this is what it is. And I'm not saying that there's anything bad about teaching, but you just never think outside of this what you originally were going to do. Yes. Speaking from a mental perspective, what are the steps that you've had to take to be able to build yourself up mentally and get mentally strong to be able to figure out that you are worth it? Because I want to go back to that point that you were saying about how you had to actually believe that you were worth it.
So I think it really started with, I started at that point kind of investing and paying a little bit for education. And these mentors were the ones who kind of taught me that I'm worth it first. I feel like someone had to tell me I'm worth it first, and then I believed it, because at that point I was just like, following everyone around and doing what everyone was doing and kind of not asking questions or like learning from anyone. I was just kind of following. I was like, oh, the photographer down the street is changing their edit. Maybe I should change my edit, and like stuff like that. I wasn't really like doing things because I felt like my business needed them or me. Anyways, I was just on this weird road. So I had a mentor, and her name is Jasmine Starr. And she's like, I've met her in real life, but like she would never, like she's mentored thousands and probably millions at this point of people. And I took a free class. If you watched it live, it was free, but it was like a $500 class, and it was like every day. And she kind of talked about these things like, your time is worth it, and you need to be doing it. And it was kind of the first like trigger in my brain, like, oh, yeah, this could be a business. Oh, I could stop doing what everyone else is doing and do what I want to do. And it was kind of that started like this change in like this shift to be like, I need to commit to this. I need to like not just do it. And a lot of people, especially around here, kind of do it kind of as a hobby. They don't commit to us as a business. And so that's who I was around. Yeah. And I realized I need to go to these conferences and like be around people that are doing this as a business in order for me to change my mindset. Yeah. And so that's kind of my next step after like someone telling me, okay, you need to shift, is okay, now I need to be around people that are doing this as a business. And I think that's important. I think surrounding yourself with people that are doing what you want to do at the level you want to do it is important. It
is. You know, you look at the way that people are doing things, like you said with, you know, oh, well, so-and-so down the street is changing their edit. I should be changing my edit. But it comes into a shift almost of, this is something that you want to be doing. So you're changing the edit because you want to change the edit, or you're adjusting this because this is something you want to do, not because you're following suit from XYZ people. So when it comes to finding those people that you look up to, or those people that you want to surround yourself with that are doing better, who do you normally like cling to? Is there anybody like on a national level that you look at?
So, I mean, Jasmine Starr is always someone who's inspirational to me. But the thing is, over the last like 3 or 4 or 5 years, I've kind of stopped listening to like the Big Wig podcast. And like I've seen Rachel Hollis in real life. I've seen Jasmine Starr in real life. I've seen Jenna Kutcher in real life. All these like big time people, and I think they're great.
Absolutely.
I think they're great educators. But I realize like their life is so far off from my life.
Right.
And I actually find a lot more inspiration finding moms who are building 6-figure businesses. Yeah. And local, like here in the Valley.
It's
and
crazy.
People in Salt Lake, like, and I've started like kind of gathering with other women in business who are in the same, especially moms who have done it while they're building their family. Cause that's hard.
Absolutely.
And it's like a different type of like, when you get educated from Jenna Kutcher and Jasmine Starr, and now they're starting to have babies and they're starting to learn these things. But when a decade ago, they weren't having babies.
Right.
They're like, time is this, and like doing all these things. But it's like, okay, what about mom guilt? What about like having to leave your kid at a soccer game while you have to go to shoot? Like, what about those things?
Right.
And so for me, it's kind of shifted over to just like real people that I know that have built successful businesses while raising families. And no certain person in particular, but just surrounding myself with other people that are like striving for more is where I find most inspiration. And also like from within, I feel like in the last 5 years or so, I've had to shift to, instead of like learning business strategy, and while obviously it's important,
right,
the most important for me is making sure my mindset's good and like making sure I'm not holding myself back, because I feel like we hold ourselves back more than any strategy ever would.
Absolutely. You know, you get into this like mental state of struggle where you're wondering whether or not you're good enough, whether or not the things that you're doing are good enough. And you have to get to a point where it's like, okay, brain, like just you sit here for a minute because I know what I'm doing is right.
Yes.
So do you find a lot of camaraderie with a lot of the moms? You don't really find any like challenge or struggle or like butting heads of jealousy or anything? Not
from my perspective. I know that there are people that struggle with me on the reverse side. Like I've heard through the grapevine of people that like will tell their clients like, you know, she only does that because she has a team, or, you know, like kind of like these things. But I always have to, and it goes back to mindset. I have to think, that person doesn't hate me. That person doesn't think ill of me. That person is insecure about their business.
Exactly.
And that's the only thing. And like, I have to be secure enough in my business to know, like, it doesn't have to be personal. It doesn't have to be this thing like, oh, well, that person's only successful because da 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 da. And I've never been that. That's not my personality
No,
at all.
of course not.
And I think that, I think it's hard for people that do kind of have those more insecurities, and like, not saying I don't have insecurities.
Well, of course, right.
Because I do, but it's like, I'm not going to put my insecurities on other people.
No.
And anyway, so I've tried to, I mean, there's definitely been different groups that I've been a part of that have been less fulfilling.
Yeah.
But in the last few years, especially, just as my business is getting harder and the world is getting harder.
Yes.
And like I've had a lot of personal struggles these last few years. I've realized like I really need to surround myself by only people that are going to uplift me and make me better. And even if they're not like pulling in six figures, are they kind? Are they
Yes.
Are they
supportive and loving?
Yes.
And yeah, absolutely.
And do they make you feel better when you leave? Like, do you feel uplifted when you leave the room?
Yep. You know, that's something that's so important, because you talk about the basically it's just projection. It's just a projection of insecurity that other people have that they're putting onto you. And it sucks. I mean, when people come across and they're like, oh, well, she said this and this and this. And it's like, why would you even say that? Like, it's almost heartbreaking, because you're like, I put my whole heart into this, and you're going to say those kinds of things. But it does come back to, I need to circle back, and I need to realize that I'm not responsible for the perception of other people. Other people's perception of me is not my responsibility. I just got to mind my own and do my own thing.
Which is one of the hardest things I feel like that I've had to overcome, because I'm a people pleaser.
Yep.
I don't like people saying
I am
bad
too.
things about me.
It's hard.
Like, it's hard. But really, once you learn, and like, I feel like even just like Jody Moore, I don't know if you've listened to her podcast.
Yeah.
She teaches you that other people's, like, people could be mad at you, and you can be like, okay, you can be mad. That's okay that you're mad at me.
Yep. I still love you, and also put out good things for you.
Yes. And it's like, it's not my responsibility. Your anger is not my responsibility.
Yep.
And that's really hard to learn, that like,
it is.
That what they're putting on you, like, it's like, okay, I have to separate this from me.
You take it off of your shoulders and put it off, because it's not your problem that they're struggling with, that kind of thing. Of course you feel empathetic. Of course you want to help them become better and grow and do good things. But you also cannot put yourself at risk, because you almost have to lower yourself a level in order to help them. And that's not the kind of thing that you need to be taking on yourself at all.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing in shifting over from being at your day job or whatever to quitting and becoming, like, doing whatever you were called to do is just like taking the first step.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people struggle with that first step. And once you take the first step, then the next step will be laid out for you, and then the next step. But right now it might feel huge to you. It might be like, oh, that I could never make that work. And until you take one step into it, you will never make it work.
Absolutely.
And so my suggestion would be just take a step, even if it's in your current business now, even if you've already are living your dream business, but you feel like there's more that you need to do, just take one step forward. And I feel like just showing, like, manifesting, I'm taking another step into this, more opportunities open up for you.
Absolutely. It's amazing how many more opportunities do open up as soon as you are willing to take that risk and take that step. It's like, okay, so you're willing to work for it. Here it is.
Yes. And even how we're connected right now. Yeah. You probably were talking about, I'm starting this new podcast, and then someone says, oh, you should talk to Kylee. And it's crazy how you're like, oh, you open up about that next thing you're doing, and then opportunities open up. And I think that's just really the way my business has been built. Like, I definitely didn't like open up business and like, one day I'm going to have a studio in my backyard, and I'm going to have a whole team, and I'm going to make six figures. Like, I never, ever, ever said that in the beginning, ever.
Yeah.
It was not my goal. It is not my dream. I mean, obviously, I think we all dream of having six-figure businesses.
Absolutely.
But I really didn't think it was even possible.
Yeah.
But I took one step, and that's all it takes.
You know, it is amazing how the dream that you thought you had isn't always what's meant to be for you. It's incredible, because, like, I know for me, my life now was not at all what I would have expected it to be in the slightest. And I am happier now than I ever have been, because it's like there was a bigger plan that was in place. And it's amazing.
Yes.
It's absolutely incredible. How do you set goals? What is your goal setting look like?
You hit like a I don't know, a trigger.
I'm sorry.
I love goals.
I love it too.
Like, I could talk about this the whole day.
Good.
So for me, goal setting, a long time ago used to be, I've made goals. My parents are entrepreneurs.
Right.
So I've made goals since I was a child. And you'd make the goal and then you would like, put it on your resolution board and whatever. And then by March you weren't working on it anymore.
Right.
But I was always setting goals. But the last few years I learned I was just putting goals and then like kind of forgetting about them.
Right.
So I have two things that I do. First of all, I have a vision board and I keep it on my desk, and I have it split into different categories, like a health goal, a financial goal, an achievement I want to do. And so I look at that every day and I visualize like my goals. And I think visualization is so important.
Absolutely.
Like seeing what you want and working for it. And the second thing I do is I set my goal and then I create a plan to make that goal happen. And I think a lot of people miss the planning part of goal setting.
Right.
But like, for example, if I'm like, I want to have 1,000 people in my next course, then I would write down, okay, I need a sales page, I need social media, I need ads, I need this many. Like I would write down every single thing that I would need, or even I need 5 clients next month. Okay, how do I get 5 clients?
Yeah.
And I write down everything, and then I add those to-do things into my calendar. So like every Tuesday, I'll work on things for that upcoming goal. And so I like make sure that I'm doing, like, it's not just like, okay, I'm going to reach for this impossible goal. It's like I have a plan, and it's impossible not to reach this goal with this plan.
Right. It's so important. It's so important. With your planner, do you do more of a physical planner, or is it more digital?
I have everything digital, but then when I'm like feeling extra like I need to hit a goal, then I'll also write it down.
Write it down.
I love writing.
I do too. It's so important. Honestly, I think a lot of the times if I don't physically write out something, then it doesn't like sit in my brain. It's like almost, I have to physically write it out, and then it actually is like, oh, okay, so it's real. Like, yes, I don't know. It's something different about it. And that's just for me personally.
No, I think that's true. I think there's something about like writing it that helps with like the visualization of it.
So with your vision board, where do you put it? Do you have it like above your kitchen, fridge?
So I have a little desk in my house. My husband makes fun of me because he thinks I have 3 offices, because I work in my bed, and then I have this studio, and then I also have like a desk in my house. And he's like, how do you get 3 offices and I only have 1? And I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. But I have a desk, and I really don't sit at it that much, but I do anytime I have to like write. Yeah. So it's hanging above my desk. And honestly, I think it would work great in someone's bathroom and next to someone's bed. But somewhere where you're going to see it and be able to like see those goals often. Because a lot of times we set the goals and then we forget about them until we pull them out the next year. Yeah. And so it's important to see those goals and work towards them.
Absolutely. So strategy-wise, what do you do along the lines of website, social media, etc.? Because like I've been on this kick. One of the ladies that I talked to last week, we talked about posting on Instagram and posting big long captions on Instagram because it's so important to feed the algorithm and all of that stuff. Do you post a lot on your Instagram with those big long captions? Do you post it on like a blog? What do you do?
So I love Instagram. It's my favorite. If I was going to choose one place to just hang out, it would be Instagram. Yes. But I'm a big believer that Instagram is only like your post lives for 24 hours and then it dies. Yep. And so I think it's so important to take that same content and have it on your blog and have it, if you have YouTube, on your YouTube, have it on your podcast, and just kind of spread the content out in many places. I think if you're going to choose one place, the best place to start your content is your blog, and then split it up from there into social media captions, because your blog is evergreen. People can find it on Google. They can find it on Pinterest. You can link it from your Instagram. You can link it from your Facebook. And I am booking clients off of blogs that I did 4 years ago on Pinterest.
That's awesome.
And so it's like, if you're really serious about your business, that's actually when I committed to my business. It was in 2011. No, maybe it was 2012. It was 2012. I committed to I'm going to run this as a business after my son was born. I started blogging 3 times a week and I haven't stopped.
That's amazing.
So I know it's hard. Running a business is hard. Right. But it's something that, that lives on. And I think SEO is super important. Pinterest. There's so many ways to share that content now.
Pinterest is ridiculous. I can't believe the amount of growth that people have had based specifically on Pinterest over the course of the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Like I was huge into Pinterest in like 2012,
right?
You know, and it's like, okay, so it's starting to come back. You know, you type out these big long things, you post it on Pinterest, and boom, you've got all sorts of attention. It's incredible. I love it. We live in such a fascinating era right now. You know, it's unreal. The attention that you can get based on social media, based on word of mouth, based on a blog that is basically free, you know, it's unreal, absolutely unreal. So where can people find you? Social media, blog, etc.
So my social media is, I mean, I have several accounts, but my main account that I that I post on stories and I am personal and all that stuff is Kylee Ann Studios. And then my blog is just kylieann.com. You can find my website, my blog, my podcast, everything on there. It's kind of all wrapped into one.
Awesome. Cool. And then is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Just don't let your own self hold yourself back, and don't let other people hold you back either. Like, it's so important to just, if you feel called to do something, to just take a step forward and go for it and not let the voices around you and inside you stop that.
Absolutely. Cool. Kylee, thank you so much for your time. This has been so much fun.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.